So as this new season continues to edge closer, we've got a bunch more transfer rumours to go through in today's video and loads of completed deals to also talk through. As always, if you're going to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular content coming out on the channel. But without any further ado, let's hop into some done deals. Okay, Cashlu has completed his move back to the Hawthorns on a 3-year deal, coming over on a free transfer after his contract at Celta Vigo had run up. Honestly, brilliant signing this from West Brom. We've already seen West Brom be quite savvy in their transfer dealings, dipping into the free agent market, adding creativity with the likes of Wallace and Swift. But Yukashlu adds real quality to that midfield from a defensive aspect. One of the few players who came out of their relegation season from the Premier League with his head held high. And for the Championship, I think that's a brilliant bit of business. We saw Blackpool complete the loan signing of Lewis Fiorini. He's coming over from Manchester City on a season-long loan. Had previously worked with Michael Appleton last season at Lincoln while he was out on loan there. Adds a little bit more depth into the attacking positions for Blackpool. Scored 6 goals, got 4 assists in League One last season. And Blackpool also completed a season-long loan deal for Liverpool defender Rhys Williams, the Preston fan joining Blackpool, which has been brought up on Twitter. But an interesting signing. We did expect Blackpool to dip into the loan market with Appleton coming in as the manager, as he's tended to do throughout his previous jobs. Tends to have decent connections in terms of bringing in loan players. Rhys Williams, we did get to see a brief glimpse of him in the Championship last season at Swansea. Didn't really go all too well. That loan spell didn't seem to be a great fit into that system, and there's that infamous clip of Andy Carroll sort of outpacing him, but still 21 years old and fairly raw. We saw Burnley goalkeeper Wayne Hennessy complete his move to Nottingham Forest. He's going in there as a backup goalkeeper at the City Ground. As this has now gone through, we expect Burnley to continue their pursuit of another goalkeeper ahead of the new season. And we saw Norwich City dropping several million on Sao Paulo's Gabriel Sara, who comes into Carrow Road this season. Really excited about this addition, albeit we might not see him immediately off the bat for Norwich. He missed the end of last season for Sao Paulo with an ankle injury, and we'll probably need to get that chance to go ahead and properly get up to speed before we see him properly integrated in the Championship. But listen, anyone coming over from South America is always going to prick up my interest, and I'm particularly interested to see where he fits in Dean Smith's plan for next season. We finally have clarity on the Jed Spence situation as well. This one has rumbled on for quite some time, but I think we all knew the basic outcome of this one. He has completed his move over to Spurs, so now Middlesbrough will, you'd imagine, finally click into gear in terms of getting more of their targets over the line. Speaking of getting targets over the line though, Zach Stefan has joined Middlesbrough on a season-long loan from Manchester City. Goalkeeper being a position where Middlesbrough were desperately in need of an upgrade after sending Joe Lumley out. We all expected Middlesbrough to be dipping into this area, and Zach Stefan's quite an interesting one. Obviously, from his perspective, he wants to be playing regular football. It's a World Cup year coming up for the USA, and at Manchester City, we've not really seen all too much of him, albeit the odd cup competition here and there. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how he gets on at Borough. We've also had clarity on the Aaron Moy situation. He has gone on to join Celtic. He was being linked around to several Championship clubs. It would have been nice to see Moy back in the Championship, but he's instead pursued a move to Celtic. Speaking of a player moving over to Rangers, we've also seen Liverpool defender Ben Davies complete a move over to Rangers on a permanent basis. A fee of 3 million rising to 4 million with add-ons. He had been linked to several Championship clubs, the likes of Blackburn, Middlesbrough and Stoke had all reportedly been interested in the defender, but from Preston's perspective, I think this one's quite positive as we net 20% of that fee. Leeds United's Jamie Shackleton has joined Millwall on loan for the season. I think this one is another quite decent bit of business actually from Millwall. Been quite impressed with how they've gone about their business over the last couple of weeks. Shackleton, a player who wants to be playing regular first team football at his age, he's going to get the chance to go ahead and do that at Millwall. Ian Matston has joined Burnley on a season-long loan as they continue their rebuild under Vincent Kompany. Another really savvy deal that Burnley are picking up here, I have to say. Really like the look of Matston out on loan at Coventry last season. I think Burnley have got a terrific left-back in the building for the season with this one. Watford have brought in goalkeeper Ben Hamer. He's expected to come in as a backup option there. Cardiff were fairly busy last week. They've added Shea Yojo into their squad. Obviously previously had a loan spell with Cardiff. Didn't really get up to all much at Millwall, but in his previous stint at Cardiff I thought looked like a decent player and adds more attacking reinforcements into that squad. And Cedric Kipri has also come in to add a little bit more depth into their centre-half department. He's come in on loan from West Brom for the season. But there we have it, guys. Those are the recent transfers which we've seen go through in the Championship. If I've missed any off, make sure to let me know about them in the comments down below. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and hop into some transfer rumours. West Brom manager Steve Bruce is being quite coy about the future of Callum Robinson at this point in time. Interestingly enough, he wasn't involved in West Brom's most recent pre-season friendly, although he did have a dead leg in the previous game they played. He has been heavily linked with a reunion at Preston North End at this point in time, and it is being spoken about in terms of a potential permanent transfer, which I think will be a massive statement of intent from North End at this point. Robinson clearly fallen down the pecking order at West Brom, and with the reinforcements that they've brought into those attacking areas this season, it would make sense if he was to make that move. Bruce said after the game that Preston would need to go ahead and cough up though if this deal was to go through, so time will tell on this one. I think that all the Preston fans are eagerly awaiting some more news on this one at the moment. I'd be absolutely over the moon if we got this one over the line. Him up front with Reece, I think would be a terrific partnership for the Championship. One player who could be coming in the door at West Brom this summer is Dwight Gayle. Could there be a reunion for this one? Well, the Newcastle striker certainly won't be short of options. Plenty of Championship clubs are currently being spoken about in contention for Gayle. The likes of Birmingham, Huddersfield, Preston, Reading, Millwall and West Brom have all been mentioned with this one. His contract at Newcastle runs until 2024, although with the way that they're going, I'm sure that they'll be happy to get him off the books at this point in time. He's not played loads of football over the last few years, but he's got one of the best ever goals to game ratios we've ever seen in the Championship, and I think that all those clubs would take him in a heartbeat. Flipping back over to Preston North End, we're still looking for some more reinforcements down the right hand side, and we have been looking to move for Dujon Sterling. He was left out of Chelsea's pre-season tour, so it looks more than likely that he will be getting at least another loan move, possibly even a permanent move away from Chelsea. He's 22 years old at the moment, had a loan spell out last season to Blackpool, previously had a spell at Coventry as well. And we've had somewhat of a transfer saga when it comes to Accrington striker Colby Bishop. At one stage it looked like a move to Portsmouth was well on the cards. Blackpool then swooped in with a late offer which was accepted. The player was said to have agreed personal terms with Blackpool. A fee of around about 500 grand was agreed with Accrington as well. However, this deal has since fallen through. Blackpool, for whatever reason, not pursuing this deal, whether it's related to a medical. Blackpool have got other targets in mind. I'm sure more information will come out over the next few days, but Bishop, who has hit double figures in back-to-back League One seasons with Accrington, may end up pursuing that move to Portsmouth once again. But an interesting story nonetheless in terms of why this one's actually fallen through. At this stage it seems more than likely that Tommy Smith probably will be offered a contract by Middlesbrough. He has been with the group during pre-season over these last few weeks, and with them looking to add a little bit more depth to go ahead and back up Isaiah Jones on that left hand side, this one would make sense. Ryan Niambe is a free agent at this point in time, and he had previously been heavily linked with a move to Middlesbrough, although it seems like Wigan Athletic could be the destination for the former Blackburn fullback. Got to admit, this one has come as quite a surprise to me, to be honest. Niambe's always been a player who I've quite liked the look of at Blackburn. Seems to have still a really high ceiling. You know, he's only 24 years old. I have to admit, I didn't see him staying in Lancashire. Lewis O'Brien and Harry Toffolo's deals to Nottingham Forest do appear to be back on, as it looks like Forest have wrapped up a deal for the duo for around about £10 million, all things considered. Now this one, we have had a little bit of turbulence with it. At one point it seemed like the deal was on the verge of collapsing due to some complications with Harry Toffolo. You know, these two seemingly coming in a pair to Nottingham Forest, but by all accounts, as of recording right now, this deal does look to be back on for a fee of around about £10 million. I mean, O'Brien especially, I think he'll be a terrific player in the Premier League. Toffolo comes into that Forest squad, adds a little bit more depth on that left-hand side as well. But it does leave a couple of massive gaping holes within this Huddersfield squad, which will need to be addressed. Middlesbrough are now upping their pursuit of their striker targets, the first of which being Brentford's Marcus Forss. Now, we did see him out on loan in the Championship last season. Wasn't the greatest of loan moves in the end to Hull. In the end, he did only start 5 matches, to be fair to him. Had 6 appearances in off the bench and scored 1 goal in that time. Previously so with Brentford, though, he'd made a real name for himself in terms of being that impact sub coming on from the bench and was absolutely clinical in their system. Perhaps Hull just wasn't a great fit for him. I'm sure that Forss won't be the only option position that Middlesbrough are currently looking into in terms of a forward, and should they get a few over the line, I think he would add decent depth into that position. Another forward Middlesbrough have potentially inquired about is Bristol City's Anthony Semenyo. He obviously had a terrific campaign last time around, and reportedly so earlier on in the window, Bristol City have already knocked back a sizable bid from an unnamed Premier League club for the forward. He is set to miss the start of the season, I believe, with an injury that he picked up, but no doubt a player who is in very high demand, and Bristol City have already shown ambition to go ahead and keep hold of this window. You'd imagine that Middlesbrough would have to part with some serious cash if they were to get this one. And Blackburn Rovers' Sam Gallagher has also been spoken about in terms of a potential move for Middlesbrough as well. I believe Gallagher only recently signed a new contract extension with Blackburn, to be fair, back in January until 2024. So Blackburn very much having the power with this one, and you'd imagine they'd be looking to keep Gallagher around with the uncertainty over Brereton's future at the moment. Speaking of Ben Brereton, once again it seems as if West Ham have pricked up their interest for the Blackburn forward, who's only got 12 months to run on his deal at Blackburn as things stand. It's an interesting situation that he finds himself in, really, because we are seeing this modern phenomenon of a lot of players these days actually being quite happy to run down their contracts in order to get a lucrative deal at their next club when they sign on a free contract. So be interesting to see what his desires are for this next season, along with what Blackburn want to get out of him. Speaking of Blackburn Rovers, they're keen to add a little bit more depth to their right hand side following on from the departure of Ryan Niambi, and Barnsley's Callum has popped up on their radar. Played plenty of Championship football last season for Barnsley, 34 appearances in that time. Still at a fairly good age as well, only 24 years old, so would fit into the sort of profile that Blackburn have typically gone after over these last few years. It seems as if the Callum O'Hare to Burnley transfer saga won't be ending anytime soon, as Burnley and Coventry still remain in talks, according to some journalists. Coventry fans, would be interested to know your take on this situation, especially what would be the price you'd be happy to sell at for a player like O'Hare. And then finishing off with Burnley, who may have a little bit more of an influx of money coming into their squad actually, as both Crystal Palace and West Ham are both said to be keen on moves for Dwight McNeil. McNeil's an interesting one. He was a player who I expected maybe to stick around this season for the Championship. I don't actually think that a season or two in the Championship would be all too bad for McNeil's development. Actually getting that consistent game time in a competitive league like the Championship would maybe let him hone his craft a little bit more, but clearly Palace and West Ham have seen enough in him to go ahead and potentially take that punt on him for next season. Well guys, there we have it. That will now wrap it up for today's video. As always, make sure to leave a like if you did go on to enjoy, and do leave any other transfer rumours that you've seen in the comments down below. Apart from that guys, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.